Being the outsider in my friend group ruined my life in high school. Basically, from grade 10 to 12, I hung out with one group of people. And in your typical friend group, how you have like all the stereotypes, you have like the short friend, you have like the inner three people, I don't know, all that stuff. And you also have the outsider. So there's like maybe a group chat that everyone's in except them. I was that outsider in my friend group. Basically, I went to about two hangouts with them, and one of which was like the formal pre thing. So that was kind of a school thing anyway. So only really one hangout that was completely unrelated to school, and I had to ask to get invited to that. I didn't get invited on my own. So I was not really a part of the group. The reason I stayed in this group and didn't just, try to join another group, make some friends, go and talk to people, put myself out there basically. The reason I didn't do that was because I was scared and I was comfortable in my current group. So before that, my other groups, I'd been getting bullied. I need to stop saying group so much. But anyway, I was getting bullied a lot. And then I came to this group and it was just like, I could relax. I wasn't getting bullied. No one said anything mean to me at all. So even if they weren't saying anything really nice, because I was kind of just there was no bad stuff, right? So it was a step up. And then I just got comfortable there and I didn't want to like go back into that like fiery danger zone. So I stayed comfortable. I didn't talk to anyone. And when the end of school came, I never saw my group again. They went off on their way. They're all still friends. I see them posting on Instagram every now and then, and I didn't see them. So it was a temporary surface level friendship that served to keep me in my comfort zone so that I didn't have to face my fears. In case you're not convinced that that wasn't good, and maybe you're in a similar situation, you're not convinced that it's actually that bad, let me run through like a pros and cons list. So the pros of being in that group was it was fun, like hanging out and joking around and all that stuff. We had some fun times. So it was fun and it was comfortable. I didn't have to deal with the negative emotions of failure and judgment from other people. On the other hand, it made me feel lonely. Another con was that I missed out on a lot of fun experiences. So when I could only hang out with my group during school hours and I never saw them outside of school hours, that meant that I missed out on all this outside of school hanging out. I went to a couple parties, but I think in all of grade 10 to 12, I went to 5 social events outside of school. So when people talk about the high school experience and having fun, going to parties, stuff other than parties, like just hanging out with your friends, I did not experience that. So that's another con. The third con is kind of related to the first one. I didn't have anyone I could go to for advice. And I didn't even have anyone I could go to vent to. So there was obviously my family, but I can't tell them everything. And finally, even though I was doing this so that I wouldn't feel like such a loser hanging out by myself, sitting by myself, I still felt like I was a loser deep down. I still knew that I didn't have any friends. Now, I want to elaborate on the loneliness one because you might be asking, like, but either you were sitting with like 10 other people every lunch break and talking to them every day. How did you feel lonely? Well, we typically associate loneliness with seeing someone like sitting by themselves who doesn't have anyone to talk to. But I think it's actually not that. I don't think loneliness is caused by not having someone to talk to. I think this is just my experience, is caused by not having someone who you can really talk to. So I couldn't go up to my friends and ask them, tell them like the deepest things that were really like upsetting me because they probably wouldn't listen really deeply like a really good friend would, like my family would. If I told them, they would be really supportive of me. If I told my friends, they would just be like, they would listen, but they wouldn't really provide that same level of support. So that is what made me feel lonely there. And you might be feeling this as well, but you just can't really recognize it as loneliness. And this is actually really harmful because when you can't recognize loneliness as loneliness, it's just this negative emotion that's kind of eating away at you. You can't ever bring it to the surface and kind of acknowledge it, which means that it just stays there and it makes you depressed. And you don't know why you're depressed. And that makes you more depressed and it's a vicious cycle. So that is my story. That is what happened. How did I get out of this hole though? How did I fix it? Well, really, half the problem was fixed by just acknowledging that my friends were not really my close friends, and I was still lonely. I was kind of putting a band-aid on a bullet wound. I wasn't really helping. That immediately kind of solved some of the problem because um, it helped me like know why I was feeling lonely and that kind of thing. So that helped. Then beyond that, I had to actually make some deeper friends, and I'm still working on that, but I've come a long way. And what I can give advice on is how I actually started on that path, rather than how to actually make friends. That's kind of a topic for another video. I think I'll make a video on that at some point there. So the way I started on the path to making better friends, real friends, is that I just changed my mindset. And I did that in two ways. And I'm also going to tell you a third way that applies if you're in high school, that I didn't use, but I think it's very valuable. The first way was that I kind of imagined myself at a funeral, at my funeral. So when I die in like 65 years and I'm my ghost looking down at my funeral, watching them give a funeral. I don't know, whatever. It's just a hypothetical scenario, okay? There will be in if I continued on the path from high school, there will be my brother and his family, and there will be that's it. Like it will just be my brother and his family because I won't have made any friends, basically any close friends. And maybe there will be like one or two other friends who like kind of happen to be close to me at that point. They were the surface level friends, but that might happen. It might not. Who knows? That's opposed to if I had actually made some good deep connections. There would be all these people that I really liked, who really liked me. I would have a full room full of people rather than just one person in his family. Because that is like, this might not work as well for you guys, but that is one of my biggest fears, is just having no one at my funeral. Like, real talk, that is so scary for me. So realizing that helped me realize that I need to actually be more polarizing. I can't just stay in my comfort zone. I have to go and really talk to people and risk rejection. So maybe that can be a technique that can help you. So this is like the second way now of how the second like mindset shift that helped me overcome it. This is very linked to the first one. Basically, I just adopted a long-term view by doing the funeral thing. So I guess the first and second thing are the same thing. There's only two then. But basically, an analogy I like to use is, imagine there is a hole dripping from your roof, and there's water dripping, not a hole dripping from your roof, water dripping from your roof. If you have a short-term focus, the obvious solution, the best solution, in fact, is to go and get a bucket and put it under the hole, because it's easier and it fixes the problem. But if you're going to be living in that house for the rest of your life, and that hole is going to keep getting worse from the water damage, dripping and dripping and dripping and dripping and dripping, the best solution by far is to patch up the hole, and to do it soon. And the sooner you have a long-term focus, the sooner you will patch up that hole. And how do you have a long-term focus? You imagine that you're at your funeral. That is how I did it anyway. And I think it really helps me. If that doesn't work for you and you're in high school, I have another technique that might work. I didn't use this, but looking back, I think I should have, or I could have, and it seems helpful. So basically, I and maybe some of you guys are very focused on what other people think. I used to be a lot more focused on this anyway. I'm getting better now. And that's not something you can easily overcome. So if I was to give you advice like, oh, just stop caring what other people think, just go and talk to new people. Maybe you'll get rejected, but who cares? Because who cares what other people think? I don't think that's realistic, because for me and for probably a lot of you, I really care about what other people think. I'm getting a lot better, but in grade 12, I definitely really cared what other people think. So if this sounds like you kind of care what other people think, instead of me just telling you, stop caring what other people think, I'm going to tell you that if you stay with your surface level friends and you don't make any real friends, other people are going to judge you. They're going to see that. they're going to see, oh, that guy, he's not really in his friend group, he's the outsider. They will notice. The people in my school definitely noticed because they saw my group posting when they were like out at some event and I wasn't there. And they saw every time it was like these people, but not me. And they would ask me, what are you doing on the weekend, Diver? And I would say, oh, nothing. And I would say that every weekend because I was never doing anything. So people notice. So if you care what other people think, then the way to paint yourself in the best light for other people's perspectives is to put yourself, get out of your comfort zone and try to meet new people and make new friends. Even if you suffer rejection, everyone is going to be really like, they're going to go, damn, that guy has balls. He's pretty good. Whereas if you're just like that guy who's doesn't really have any close friends and is just hanging out with a group, they're going to go, well, not only does he not really have any close friends, he isn't doing anything about it. So if you care what other people think, a good strategy you can use is to use that to your advantage to get out there and fix this problem. So I've gone through my pros and cons list and I've established, I hope I have convinced you that, so with my pros and cons list, I hope I have convinced you that hanging out and being the outsider in your group is a big problem and it is impeding your long-term happiness at the cost of very short-term happiness. And I hope I've convinced you of that. And then I've also hopefully tried to shift your mindset to help you realize that taking action is actually the best thing you can do for, like, I don't know, improving your life, not having no one at your funeral. So all I'm asking is that you reflect on this, and I want to try and change your perspective. So think about it. Think about what I've said. That's all I'm asking you to do. I don't need you to like go and like talk to 5 strangers and try and make new friends. That would be good, but it's unrealistic. You're not going to change your life from one YouTube video. What you can do from one single YouTube video is change your perspective. So I hope I've changed your perspective on making friends. If you want me to change your perspective on relationships, you can click this video as well, and I'll see you there.